You've heard it called the Spanish flu, but have you ever wondered why? This infamous pandemic from the early 20th century bears a name that has puzzled historians and scientists alike. A name that, many argue, is a gross misrepresentation of the truth. Let's take a journey back in time to unravel this historical conundrum. The year is 1918. The world is embroiled in the throes of World War I, and a new enemy surfaces. An invisible one, bringing a different kind of war. The newspapers of the day christen it the Spanish flu, yet Spain, being a neutral country during the war, is left scratching its head. Why, you ask? Well, the answer lies in the peculiar circumstances of that era. War-torn Europe was a hotbed of censorship. Reports of illness and death that could demoralize citizens or reveal strategic weaknesses to the enemy were suppressed. Spain, on the other hand, remained neutral during the conflict, allowing its press to report freely on the devastating health crisis that was sweeping across the globe. Thus, as Spanish newspapers filled their columns with stories of the deadly flu, it seemed to the rest of the world that Spain was the pandemic's epicenter, leading to the unfortunate misnomer. But here's a little-known fact for you. The first documented case of this flu didn't occur in Spain but rather in the heartland of America, Kansas, to be precise, several months before the outbreak in Spain. This revelation raises a pressing question. If the so-called Spanish flu didn't start in Spain, where did it originate? The quest to find the true birthplace of the Spanish flu is akin to piecing together a complex jigsaw puzzle. Current theories range from France to China, with evidence suggesting that strains of bird flu may have adapted to humans and sparked the pandemic. However, one clue seems to stand out from the rest: the bustling military camps of World War I. So, if it didn't originate in Spain, where did the Spanish flu come from? Stay tuned as we delve deeper into this historical mystery in our next segment. It's 1918 and the world is at war, but a new enemy is emerging, one that doesn't discriminate between sides. Imagine a world in the throes of the Great War. Trenches cut through Europe like scars, and the air is filled with the deafening echoes of artillery. Nations are locked in a brutal conflict, consuming resources, lives, and hope. The world is a tinderbox and it's just waiting for a spark. In the midst of this chaos, a silent enemy begins to emerge. It creeps into military camps, slips into bustling cities, and crosses borders with ease. It's a virus, a strain of influenza, but it's unlike anything anyone has seen before. This isn't just a regular flu, it's aggressive, it's quick, and it's deadly. It targets not just the old and the weak, but the young and the healthy too. Soldiers in the prime of their life are struck down not by bullets, but by fever, fatigue, and an unshakable cough. And it's spreading fast. In these military camps, conditions are ripe for the virus to thrive. Close quarters, stressed immune systems, and a lack of understanding about disease transmission create a perfect storm. The virus spreads like wildfire, and before anyone can grasp the magnitude of the situation, it's too late. The pandemic has begun. The world of 1918 is a world on the move. Soldiers are transported across continents. Civilians travel to find work or escape the horrors of war, and with each journey the virus hitchhikes, finding new hosts, new victims. It's a silent invader, and it's taking over the world. Meanwhile, the world's attention is elsewhere. The war is the headline of every newspaper, the topic of every conversation. The virus, now known as the Spanish flu, is just a footnote in a world consumed by conflict. But it's a footnote that will soon become the main story, a story of a global tragedy that would leave no corner of the earth untouched. And amidst this global conflict, a deadly virus begins to spread. The first documented case of the flu occurred not in Spain, but in Kansas, USA. But is this where the story begins? As we delve into this historical enigma, we're faced with a myriad of theories, each more intriguing than the last. Some researchers argue that the virus originated in China, mutating from a strain of bird flu that jumped species. Others suggest it began in France amidst the trenches and turmoil of the First World War. But it's the theory that brings us back to American soil that seems to hold the most weight. In the early months of 1918, a severe outbreak of influenza hit the military camps in Kansas. With soldiers living in close quarters and the constant flow of troops across the Atlantic, it's not hard to imagine how easily the virus could have spread. This theory is further supported by the fact that the first wave of the pandemic primarily affected military personnel. However, it's essential to remember that the true origins of the Spanish flu remain shrouded in mystery. The disease spread rapidly, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake, but its starting point is still up for debate. The various theories about its origin are based on historical records, epidemiological data, and the genetic analysis of the virus itself. But as with all scientific investigations, it's a process of piecing together the evidence, and the picture is far from complete. Despite the uncertainty, one thing is clear. The conditions of the First World War, the crowded military camps, the global movement of troops, and the strain on public health resources created a perfect storm for the emergence and spread of a deadly influenza virus. This is more than just a tale of a misnamed disease. It's a stark reminder of how global events can shape the course of a pandemic. It's also a testament to the importance of understanding the origins of diseases, not just for historical interest, but to inform our responses to future health crises. The true origin of the Spanish flu remains a mystery, but the clues point towards a global pandemic sparked by war. The Spanish flu was a global disaster, infecting a third of the world's population. Just imagine 1 in every 3 people on Earth stricken by the same illness. It's a staggering thought, isn't it? This wasn't a virus that respected borders or nationalities. It swept across continents, from the crowded cities of Europe to the remote villages of Africa, Asia, and the Americas. It's estimated that up to 500 million people were infected, and tens of millions lost their lives. This indiscriminate contagion wasn't just a tragedy for the infected, but it had far-reaching implications for societies around the globe. The Spanish flu hit at a time when the world was already in turmoil due to the First World War, and it further exacerbated the chaos, disrupting economies and straining healthcare systems to their breaking points. One of the most striking aspects of the Spanish flu was its impact on young adults. Unlike many diseases which often take a heavier toll on the very young and the very old, Spanish flu was particularly deadly for people in their 20s and 30s. This left a devastating mark on a generation, robbing families of their breadwinners and nations of their future leaders. The Spanish flu also exposed social inequalities that are still relevant today. Marginalized communities were hit hardest, highlighting the vulnerability of those without access to adequate healthcare and living conditions. But, as with any global crisis, the Spanish flu also led to changes. It spurred advancements in medical research, reshaped public health policies, and highlighted the importance of international cooperation in the face of a common enemy. In the aftermath of the pandemic, nations around the world began to realize the importance of investing in healthcare infrastructure and disease prevention. The lessons learned from the Spanish flu have shaped our approach to public health to this day, influencing how we respond to new outbreaks and pandemics. The Spanish flu left a lasting legacy, one that goes far beyond its misleading name. It's a testament to the resilience of humanity, a reminder of our shared vulnerabilities, and a call to action for ongoing vigilance in the face of future health crises. At the heart of this pandemic was a deadly virus strain, H1N1. A relative of the common flu virus we encounter today, H1N1, was anything but ordinary. Its name refers to the 2 types of proteins found on its surface, hemagglutinin-1 and neuraminidase-1. These proteins are key players in the virus's ability to infect cells and spread throughout the body. If we imagine the virus as a tiny invader, these proteins act like a lock-and-key mechanism. Hemagglutinin, or the H in H1N1, is the key that allows the virus to enter a cell. Once inside, the virus takes over, turning the cell into a virus-making factory. The N in H1N1, neuraminidase, then acts as a getaway vehicle, helping the newly made viruses escape and infect more cells. But what made H1N1 so deadly? It turns out this virus strain was a master of disguise. It mutated rapidly, changing its appearance frequently and making it difficult for the immune system to recognize and fight off. This led to severe infections, particularly in the lungs, causing symptoms like high fever, cough, and in severe cases, pneumonia. But there's something else that set H1N1 apart. In a typical flu virus, the most vulnerable groups are usually the very young and the very old. But H1N1 was different. It had a devastating effect on healthy young adults, a group usually resilient to the flu. Scientists believe this was due to a phenomenon known as a cytokine storm, an overreaction of the body's immune system that can be fatal. The H1N1 virus was also incredibly contagious, spreading from person to person through droplets in the air, from a cough or a sneeze. And in the close quarters of wartime camps and bustling cities, the virus spread like wildfire. This deadly strain of flu brought the world to its knees. But how did different countries respond? As the virus swept across the globe, nations scrambled to respond. The Spanish flu was a formidable adversary, crossing borders with impunity and leaving devastation in its wake. Countries around the world, already grappling with the fallout of World War I, now had to face a new, invisible enemy. In the United States, the first wave was initially downplayed, but as the death toll mounted, cities started implementing public health measures. Schools, theaters, and churches were closed, and people were ordered to wear masks. Yet, the response was inconsistent. Some cities lifted restrictions too soon, leading to a deadly second wave. Australia managed to delay the arrival of the flu by implementing strict maritime quarantine. But when the virus eventually arrived, it hit hard. The response was hampered by a lack of coordinated federal action, and the virus spread through the country. In South Africa, the pandemic claimed the lives of an estimated 300,000 people. The government's response was slow and ineffective, with limited resources diverted to the war effort. The virus preyed on the inequalities of the time, hitting the marginalized communities the hardest. India bore the brunt of the pandemic, with an estimated 17 million deaths. The British colonial government's response was slow and inadequate, exacerbating the crisis. The tragedy fueled resentment against colonial rule and sparked the movement for independence. The pandemic revealed the importance of a coordinated and rapid response. It underscored the need for accurate and timely information, the value of social distancing and hygiene measures, and the critical role of healthcare infrastructure. In the aftermath, countries learned hard lessons. Many invested in healthcare systems and public health education. The World Health Organization was established in 1948, partly in response to the devastation wrought by the Spanish flu. The Spanish flu was a global tragedy, but it also taught us valuable lessons about pandemic preparedness. The echoes of these lessons can still be heard today, as we navigate the challenges of modern pandemics. We must remember, learn, and prepare, for history has a way of repeating itself. Over a century later, the Spanish flu still holds relevance in our modern world. The Spanish flu, much like the more recent COVID-19 pandemic, demonstrated the immense power of an invisible enemy. Both pandemics swept across the globe, infecting millions, disrupting everyday life, and leaving a path of devastation in their wake. The parallels are striking, and the lessons of the past echo in our present. In the face of the Spanish flu, the world learned about the importance of transparency, rapid response, and public health interventions. Countries that implemented measures like isolation, quarantine, good personal hygiene, disinfectants, and limitations on public gatherings managed to flatten the curve and save countless lives. Fast forward to the 21st century, and we see these same strategies being deployed against COVID-19. Quarantines and lockdowns became a part of our daily lives, personal hygiene took center stage, and the world collectively held its breath as scientists raced to develop a vaccine. The Spanish flu also taught us about the devastating consequences of social inequality. The virus hit marginalized communities the hardest, revealing the deep-seated disparities in our societies. Today we are still grappling with these issues, as COVID-19 disproportionately affects underprivileged communities. But perhaps one of the most profound lessons from the Spanish flu is the power of science and the importance of trust in it. It took over 2 decades to identify the H1N1 virus as the cause of the Spanish flu. Now, armed with advanced technology and learnings from the past, we were able to identify the novel coronavirus within weeks and develop multiple effective vaccines within a year. Clearly, we've come a long way since 1918, but the Spanish flu serves as a sobering reminder of the challenges we face when battling a pandemic. It underscores the importance of global cooperation, of listening to science, and of preparing for the unseen. The Spanish flu serves as a stark reminder of the importance of global cooperation and preparedness in the face of a pandemic.